Hi, it's Mike again. Welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to take a mini compressor and put it into a Festool Systainer like this one. Now, I have a bunch of Festool tools, and they all come with these containers, and I also have a vacuum that the containers stack up on. And it's really easy to lug around and move around and wheel from job site or around the house and different places where you're working. However, the compressor I need for my nailers is quite big and unwieldy, and it's really a pain to move it around. So my thought is to take a mini compressor, shoehorn it into this Festool Systainer. And the compressor that I got was this Senco 1 gallon half horsepower compressor, and this is more than enough to use for air nailers. This is a fairly good quality one, so I've read the reviews online. They say that people are pretty happy with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoehorn this compressor into the Festool container. This is a little bit bigger than the Systainer, so we'll have to modify this a little bit to make it fit, but I think we should be able to make that work, and I'll show you the steps on how we do it. So in order to make this work be more effective, I'm going to do a few mods to this. So I'm going to cut it down to make it fit. What I'm also going to do is relocate the gauges to the front panel of the Systainer. So I'll put a metal bracket, mounting bracket, and we'll do for the tank pressure and for the line pressure, and we'll run a little hose from the bung to the gauges. What I'm also going to do is do a 90 degrees out of this, so this hose spigot comes out further, and I'm going to cut a window in the front of the Systainer so I can put the hose in and out without having to lift open the lid. And the other plan is to make another plug entry over here, like a female plug, where I can just plug extension cords into as well, and that makes it more convenient. So once I'm using it and it's on for the day, I can close it up, I can put stuff up on top of it and move it around. So this way is 15 inches, and that's fine. The compressor will fit in that way. But this is 10.5 inches, so we need to get the compressor this distance here down to 10.5 inches, and I think that's manageable. So we've got the motor off, and so what we're going to do is I'm going to make a mounting plate, or some bars that come out and push the motor right to the edge of this bar here, and then I'll be able to cut this and shrink it up. And the reason why I'm going to shorten this up is that the actual tank is actually welded, and I don't want to break those welds to jeopardize the tank at all. So I'm going to leave the tank alone, and I'll just modify the actual holding cradle itself. I don't want to ditch the whole cradle because I actually want to keep it so I can lift it in and out of there if I ever need to get at the drain. So that's the plan. Move the engine over and shorten up the cradle a little bit. So I've got the mounting tabs all done. So this is going to push the motor out just shy of the carrier. And so this is 3/8 inch steel, inch wide. And I countersunk it a little bit so the bolts have some clearance. And then I put another hole in there so the mounting holes of the engine can actually go through because it's pretty tight. So just clearance that. So it's just going to sit like that. And the engine will come right up tight to here, and it will just be shy of that so it won't rub on the Systainer. So I got the motor mounted for a test fit to see how much I got to play with. You can see by the copper line there that I have probably about an inch, just over an inch. So I think between the engine and the tank I have about 1.5 inches to play with. So I'm going to take out 1.5 inches in this little section here, and I'll put a little plug in the middle, and I'll re-weld that up, and it'll be nice and compact, and it should slide right in. Here's a reinforcement tube that slides in the middle, and I drilled a little hole for a little plug weld, so I'll plug weld that, do the same for the other side, slide it in, plug weld it, and then run a bead all the way around, and that should be good. So we got a test fit here. I took out 1.25 inches of the tube there, you can see. There's lots of room there, clearance there. I got about maybe 1/2 inch to spare there. And then the copper line lines up perfectly with the fitting on the compressor. And everything lines up. The only issue I'm going to have is that on-off switch. It's going to hit the rubber handle, so I just need to trim that, but it's not going to hit the bar itself, so we're all good there. it's pretty much done, and it slides right into the Systainer, not a problem. You could pretty much just call it dialed now. You could probably just drill a couple holes in here for the hose to go through, and every time you want to use it, just open up the lid. So I'm going to take it a little step further, and I'm going to mount these gauges right on either side. And I welded one up already, and it's all done, and it nicely holds the gauge. And I'll drill a hole in that, and I'll mount that in there. And how I did that was I got a piece of tubing. The problem is that the gauge size is a little too small for this. So what I ended up doing was I cut the tubing, and then I cut a slot in it. And then I cut another piece with another slot, and that mounts in the middle inside there, and that uses as a stop for the gauge not to go any further. And then I'm going to weld this plate on top of there like that. And then so the gauge slides in there but won't go all the way through, and then I'll mount some bolts through here to retain the gauge, and then the gauge can go right into the Systainer. So this is the finished gauge mount. So we got the front face, and I got bolts to go through, and I have a piece of aluminum cut out to hold it into the back. So what I'll do is I'll take this all apart, I'll finish the other one, and I'll give this a shot of paint. So we're just marking the face shields here because that's where we're going to cut the hole for the gauge to go. I got some extension lines here that come out of the tank. We'll put a coupler on that, and then we'll mount in there. And the same for the other one. So one is tank pressure and one is line pressure. And now I've also got some extension pieces here. And what we'll do is we'll put a T in here, and we'll cut a hole in here for this to stick out. And so you can just reach in and open and close that, so you can get the hose in and out without actually having to open the lid. I think to adjust the pressure on the valve here, we'll just keep this in here, and if you want to adjust the pressure, you just open it up. Once the pressure is set on my tool, I hardly ever touch it anyway, so that's good. So I found that when I went on this side, I went too fast and it melted the plastic. So if you go really slow and just take your time, it doesn't melt the plastic and does a better cut. So lesson learned, go slow. There we go. So here's another mod I'm doing here. So I want to be able to plug this thing in and out with an extension cord. So I made this little adapter, slides in there like that. And the reason why I made it slide in and out is because the bottom is a little too big and I wouldn't be able to get past it. So if I ever need to take this in and out, I can easily remove it. So like that, and this is going to be welded. Since this is metal, I can do a little tack weld around there and place it like that. So then that will allow me to take an extension cord and just plug it in, and then I will just plug this main plug into that as well, so it'll be easy plugging in and out, really convenient. Now you don't have to do this, you could just notch it and just run the normal extension cord out, but I thought this would be a really cool mod to make it look really slick. So as I mentioned earlier, I was going to do a 90 out to bring the spigot out here, the connector, and I cut a 3-inch hole in here, and luckily enough for me, you can reach in here and you can actually turn the pressure regulator right here, so you don't need to extend that. That's really handy. And then I built this little faceplate here to add some bit more rigidity to it. So I'll bolt that in there like as well, and I'll paint that black so I'll match. It looks really easy. You can get in there, and this actually sits flush with the front of this, so there's no issue with that for bumping on anything like that. Yeah, maybe some dust will get inside here, but if this was freestanding, it would probably get dust in there as well anyway. Well, it's done, and I'm really happy the way it turned out. If I didn't tell you, you would think it was actually made by Festool. I was able to put some labels on it, so I got hose pressure label over here and tank pressure, and I actually decided to go with a hole for the drain. So you just reach in here and flip that if you want to drain it. And I did drill some holes in the bottom here, so if there is moisture in there, we'll just drain out the bottom so you don't have to take it out. And with this here, I made a plug, so you can just take your extension cord, plug it in, plug it out like just like that, and you don't have to worry about coiling up any wires and stuff like that. So that's really good. Just like that. We do have the air holes on top, air holes on the bottom here as well, so that should help recirculate the air. And to be honest with you, it really doesn't get that hot in there. If you're just using it for air nailers, it actually doesn't cycle all that much. So let's have a look at the completed compressor. Now we have some labels made up. It's the tank pressure on the gauge there. We have the nice faceplate around the hole where the hose comes out. And then we have the hose pressure label and gauge. Let's open it up. Let's look inside. You can see the two small hoses. Now I had a hard time finding some hoses. These are actually grease gun hoses and they have the proper fittings for this. So that worked really well. And then you can see the outlet on the side. So I'm using the factory plug out of the compressor. It plugs right into that yellow plug there. So, and that I splice that in, and then that's a custom made recessed socket that will accept a normal extension cord. So once it's all closed up, you can easily get at it and use it. I love the way this turned out. This is probably one of the best projects I've done in a long time for usefulness. This looks factory, something Festool would actually create. So I have no aspirations to actually make any more. I'm not making them for sale. This is just for personal use. The purpose of this video is to show you that you too can do something like this with a little bit of ingenuity. So I hope you like this video and inspires you to do something similar. Once again, thanks for watching.